Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Welcome to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services here in the great town of Eastland, Texas. I hope everyone is enjoying themselves after a long holiday weekend. We're going to talk about some lighthearted stuff today on Life Planning 101, and it's all about the COVID fog. What do I mean by that? Well, I don't know about you, but it seems like these last 2 years have kind of been a big blur. It's like this fog has just landed over our vision, and I can't remember what happened in 2020, what happened in 2021, and I think there's a lot of people that way because here recently I've been getting a lot of calls about some questions on legislation that was actually passed in 2019. I know this is hard to believe, but calendar year-wise, that was 3 years ago. The legislation was passed about 2 years ago in 1 month. And so I thought, we ought to just take some time on Life Planning 101 and go back and visit some important highlights from these last 2 years that really could have an impact on your planning. And kind of reminds me, I don't know about you. I love Lucy. I cannot not watch it and not laugh out loud. It's just one of those shows that does that. But I came across one of her famous quotes and I thought, how appropriate. And she said, she's talking to Ethel, of course, not to brag or anything, but I can forget what I'm doing while I'm doing it. So true, isn't it? So true. We all have this fog, this brain fog in our lives, so to speak, and it's like COVID just made it even worse. And so I think it is really important to go back, kind of pull some pieces of things that would be important to your planning, your life planning. And today we're going to be talking about everything in regard to what we call life planning, right? We've got some stuff around, whether it be taxes or investments or family support stuff or your legacy planning, all of those things. It's all important because it all is there to support you and what it means for you to live life on purpose. And so I know sometimes people get bored when it comes to legislation and when it comes to taxes, but I'm going to try to keep it as interesting as possible. I mean, obviously, I did incorporate I Love Lucy into the show. So we'll do our best to do that. But I do think it's important that we just go back, take a minute to go back over 2 years of fog and pull out the most important pieces. You're not going to want to miss this show on Life Planning 101 when we come back. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services here in the great town of Eastland, Texas. And by the way, we're going to be talking a lot about the articles that we publish on a weekly basis on our website today. So if you've never been to our website, I'd highly encourage it. I mean, there is a library of stuff in there. It's www.kennedy, KENNEDY-financial.com. Again, www.kennedy-financial.com. And the reason I bring that up is if you actually sign up for our newsletter, you will get one of those coined articles every single week in our what we call weekly life lessons of shows in here, obviously. But the articles are very complimentary to the shows. We try to do that on purpose so that we can give you more food for thought. Or, some people are just visuals. I know I am. I take things in better when I read them than when I listen to them. Or you might be driving on the road, busy doing something else, and you want to go back and say, what was that? I wish I had that back. I can't tell you how many times that happens to me when I'm listening to something. So I think it's really good to be able to do that. But in today's show specifically, we're going to be going back per the first segment. And we're going to be talking about the important news you missed over the last 2 years due to COVID fog. Media. I swear, you pull up any page, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's ABC, NBC, Fox News, CNN, all these one-offs. It doesn't matter. The headlines are swamped with one thing, COVID-19. They don't call it COVID-19 anymore. They got all these nicknames for it and the variants and everything else, but that's what it is at the end of the day. And this has been the case for 2 years. Now, I think some people are numb to that. I think that they don't even pull up the headlines because they know they'll have to scroll and scroll and scroll to find something important. Example, today I'm on the headlines looking and I had to scroll down like a mile before I see North Korea launches another missile. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's kind of important. Shouldn't you be putting that at the top of the headlines versus the bottom of the headlines? Nonetheless, this is the world that we're living in today. Everything's about fear and selling fear and more drama to your mama kind of thing. But with that being said, there is some important things that have actually been happening over the last couple years, and they might impact you. So that is what we're going to talk about on Life Planning 101 today. I bring up our website, www.kennedy-financial.com, because all of these articles are actually coined on there. We pinned them. And they're still there, and they're there for you to go back and look at, read through, help you. I encourage you to do it. It really is a font of information. It's like it's like getting your own education, going to the website and going into our learning center. So it's huge. But with that being said, let's get to the meat. Let's talk about this so-called 2-year period that just happened, and we aren't sure that it happened or how it happened. You know, it reminds me of 2 guys that are hunters in the forest, and they're going in there and one of them gets shot. And so the other one freaks out. He's like, oh my goodness, I think he's dead. I better, call 911. So he calls 911, and the guy says, well, are you on the other end of the line? First thing you need to do is you need to make sure that he's dead. And so, of course, he says, well, just hold on just a minute. And there's a gunshot that happens, and then he goes back on the line. He says, yep, he's dead. So I think we're all in this little chaotic place in this world. And of course, that was a joke from Reader's Digest from years ago. You probably had heard it, but it really is sadly true today that, I think we're so consumed with what the here and now is, and that we're not looking at the big picture, that sometimes we're thinking too factually. We're thinking too logically rather than that big picture. So my hope is today I kind of get to pull you out of the weeds and help you think about yourself. Help you be selfish for a minute and think about what's most important to you and how some of this applies to you. So let's start. 2019. It ended with a bang. And I'll never forget it because we're driving back from our annual Christmas trip with the boys, and I have a brand new piece of legislation to read. It is called the Secure Act. It was passed in December, and it basically became effective in our little 2-year window. And there was a lot of stuff in it. By the way, that is one of those good reads at www.kennedy-financial.com. It was called the Secure Act. Is it really a good thing? And I bring that up because there is no possible way for me to go through that on the show today. In fact, you could probably find it on one of our last shows where we did a whole show about it. And even then, there was so much that I couldn't include everything. But I do want to name a few biggies because these are some things that we're getting questions about, and I think they're really important. Number 1 is you can still open a retirement plan for 2021, even though it's 2022, and you can make contributions for that plan up until you file your tax return. Even if you file an extension and you file it in the extension period, you can still do it. And I think this is powerful because used to you had to have the plan open by 12/31 of the tax year. And then, of course, you'd be able to fund most of them afterwards, not every one of them afterwards. But this gives you a little bit of rear view planning, so to speak, for 2021. So if you think you're going to owe a lot in taxes, you actually are a business owner, there might be some opportunity to put some money away. Or even if you're not going to owe a lot in taxes, you might want to think about it from a backdoor Roth strategy while we still have those available. So it's really important to look at that. Number 2, the Secure Act also bumped the required minimum distribution age. So this is the age, the ripe old age, when you have had that IRA, the 401k, the whatever it was, the retirement plan basically, long enough. And every time you put money back into that retirement plan, you got a tax deduction when you did it. Well, now the IRS says, well, you can't leave it in there forever. We're going to make you start taking it out because we want our cut of the pie. So this is the ripe old age that you have to start doing that. And when you take those withdrawals, obviously for something that you've already deferred from a tax standpoint, then you're going to have to pay tax on it coming out. So again, IRS gets you coming or going. Remember that rule. No matter what you're talking about with your tax planning, that's the rule. So if you deferred it going in, you're going to pay tax on it coming out. And that's important to realize, because I actually have one guy tell me, I'm still working. I don't want to pay tax yet. Well, this is why they increased the age. It is now 72 years of age. Okay. So rather than 70 and a half, which is a crazy, weird rule, and all these other rules that are surrounded it, at least they made something more simple. Yes, you heard that right. Congress actually made something more simple. But with that being said, on the flip side, there's actually a neat little thing here. So there, you can also contribute to your IRAs. You used to be cut off that you couldn't do that past the age of 70, but now there is no age limitation to that. So, if you are working and you have to take that required minimum distribution, there might be a potential for you to be able to put back in that money as a contribution to an IRA. So you just got to see. Obviously, there's some other caveats with that: income limitations, earned income, all those other things and more. So it's important you talk with your, advisor, your tax professionals, all of those people to help you get it done right. But it is a caveat of that Secure Act. So the last thing I want to talk about with the Secure Act that was kind of blurred over, and this is probably the most neglected yet most newsworthy piece of anything, whatever you want to call it, in this session. So basically, when you've had a retirement plan, an IRA or whatever it is, and you pass away, you and your spouse pass away, and you pass that down to your children, in the past, your children have had some options. They could have taken it out as a lump sum, paid all the taxes in 1 year, spread it out over 5 years, or they could have spread it out over their life expectancy and had their own required minimum distribution when they do that. And that allowed it to keep growing and keep that tax bill low. Well, the Secure Act says no more. You got 10 years after you die that they're going to have to get it out. And they're going to have to pay the tax on it. 10 years. Now, that doesn't sound so bad, right? Wrong. Here's why. Remember, we are in what's called a progressive tax system. This means the higher your income is in any given year, the higher your tax rate is going to go. So imagine if you have a successful kid that's already in a high tax bracket. And because of this 10-year rule, they've got to pull out an additional $100,000. And it's bumped up to the next tax bracket. Ouch! This could hurt big time. In fact, we were looking at an analysis last year, and because of the income taxes, the state income taxes, and the estate taxes, that child would lose over 75% of their parents' IRA. That's pretty big. So this is something to really pay attention to if you have any sizable IRA and you think it's still going to be there when you pass away for your kids. So when we come back on Life Planning 101, like I said, I'm going to try not to keep it too boring, but we're going to talk about COVID thug. What did you miss? What important news did you need to know? And we just got through the first part, the Secure Act. We still have yet to hit 2020 and 2021 when we come back. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services, and we sure are happy to have you on the show. It is truly a blessing to serve each and every week and provide our listeners with very valuable, relevant information to very unique situations. We provide generic advice, yet we try to make it so personalized in a way that Nothing is cookie cutter. And that's a very difficult thing to do, but we try nonetheless. And we've been talking about important headlines, important news that affects your plan that you've missed in the last 2 years due to this thing called COVID fog. And all we hear about is COVID this, COVID that, COVID this, COVID that. So we got through the Secure Act. And if you've missed any of that, please go to our website, www.kennedy-financial.com. Do yourself a favor and pull up the Secure Act. Is this really a good thing? Because, well, I'll just put it this way. If you have a retirement plan, you need to read it, period. Because there's lots of things, but there is tons of other things. If you're business owners, if you're da-da-da-da-da. So just go do it. But let's get into 2020. So interestingly enough, the first article we wrote in 2020 was called 2020 Vision, looking for 2020 vision. Oh, how ironic. I mean, that's like foreshadowing for a spooky movie, right? I don't know. But the really funny thing was it gave a story about how you remove the fog in your life so that you can see the finish line. And it really is a must read, because my bet is your life got railroaded, just like most people's in 2020. And we all still want that same thing. We want that 2020 vision. We want to be able to see that finish line and know how we're going to get there. So I highly recommend that you do yourself a favor and go back and do some reading. And if you go to our newsletter this week, we're also got some other notable Life Planning 101 episodes and weekly life lessons that were pinned on a similar issue. Because in my look at 2020, there was a lot of legislation passed, but it was all due to COVID, or I say all, mostly due to COVID that affected your planning, and it was all temporary. The most important thing that you could have gotten out of 2020 was to never live life the same way. And I don't mean that in a way that we enjoy what we've been through, or we enjoy the way that we've had to live life under this new circumstance. What I mean it as is that this should have been and still can be the biggest reflection that we can have on our lives to make this next leg of life better. So we've also put in here some other great reads. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. COVID-19, the end of an era. The opportunity in the mirror. I wonder who that is. Are you where you want to be? Finding the perfect investment. Good stuff. So there's 2020 in a nutshell. No wonder it flew by. Right? And then 2021. Woo! Now we get into some legislation, my friends. Tax changes, tax changes, tax changes, tax changes, tax changes, more tax changes. Every day I read about tax changes in 2021. And it was this, and it was that. And then now it's this, and now it's that, and now it's this, and now we're going back to this, and then we're going forward to this. And no, we don't want to do that anymore. It wore us out. I tell you what, I was talking to a tax attorney, and he was pretty funny. He said he was in a meeting with some clients, and he said all of a sudden his phone just started blowing up, like he kept and he normally never pays his phone any attention when he's in with clients. But he says something has got to be wrong, because what is going on with that? And so he gets over to his desk and it's like, did you see it's over? Did you see they didn't get through? Did you see there's no changes at the end of the day? Because every single one of us was waking up every single day and seeing if Congress had passed something or if there was a new proposal on the table so we could help our clients live their lives on purpose. And at the end of the day, hardly anything happened. Yes, the Build Back Better plan appears to be dead in the water. But what does this mean for you? It doesn't mean that there's not going to be change. In fact, quite the obvious. We just got to see the cards. We just got to see how Congress is holding their cards and what they're thinking about doing in regard to tax changes. And now we can plan around it. Because if we know that tidal wave's coming, then we can do something about it. And we've got a little time to do it. We aren't crunched in the last month of the year. I'll never forget, we were working with someone trying to sell their business. And literally we run like plans side by side. Okay, what if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do this? And we're doing it because we don't know at the end of the day how things are going to shake out. And at the end of the day, they shaked out great for the business owner. And I was just thanking God for that to happen. But we never know that. So this time we have a gift. We literally have a gift because we know what's in the cards at the House, what's in the cards at the Senate, and what they want to get done from the tax changes perspective. And ladies and gentlemen, it is both sides of the aisle. So don't be thinking that it's one side or another. And there's a lot of lobbyists out there that are fighting for you as a successful individual that's just trying to make life work, right? Because most successful individuals are not the super rich. We are the middle class millionaires, right? And then you have the people that are the blue collar and the white collar workers that are working every single day. And those are the people that really need all the help they can get out of this plan. And I think we would all agree with that, no matter what side of the aisle we're on. So this isn't a partisan thing. There are both sides coming at loopholes and closing down things and doing things different. And some of it's warranted. There's no doubt about that. But the bottom line is the bottom line. We see the cards. We know what's there. So if you're selling something, if you have a lot of income, if you have a big retirement account, if you have a large estate, it may be, mark my words, now or never. So William Arthur Ward wrote this. He said, opportunities are like sunrises. If you wait too long, you miss them. And if you still need a little motivation after me telling you all that, I'd recommend just taking a look back at the headlines. You don't even have to go to the article. I mean, you can obviously see the hands that I'm talking about on what's at the table of the proposed legislation through 2021. We wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7! That's almost one a month about what was the update on the tax changes now. What are we looking at now? How's this happening now, right? So these are all listed on our article this week. I'd highly recommend going back and looking at them just so you can have an idea of what it might mean for your situation. But the bottom line is just to do something, get some help and do something, because again, you may not get this opportunity again. And you know, we've said this, and you go back, we said this, we warned you in 2016 when tax reform happened, it's going to be over. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, we really put the hammer down. In 2021, we said, okay, you got to be doing this. And everybody keeps forgetting that it doesn't take legislation to change this. Everything's set to expire too. So, or most everything's set to expire. So I'd highly recommend that you work on doing something. Now, I want to go back to something that we wrote in 2019. This is how we ended our article about the Secure Act. And it still is applicable today. It was a quote by Warren Buffett. We all know Warren Buffett, that greatest investor of all time, allegedly. He said, someone is sitting in the shade tree today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. And you know what? That doesn't just apply to the investment world. You might be educating yourself to save your pennies, so your dollars are going to be there. You might be teaching your children not to take what they see at face value so they can fend for themselves. Or perhaps you're setting up your legacy for generations to come. It doesn't matter what it is. I just hope that you're planting and you're nurturing that tree in 2022. Because I'll promise you this, if you're doing it, the shade's going to be well worth it. Thanks again for listening into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services. God bless everyone. Have a wonderful week and join us next week right here, same time, same channel.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.